Hey, thank you for tuning in the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Johnny Smith. My guest today is a not a former, but an Air Force veteran, a chef, a comedian, and I didn't know this till recently, a painter.
Yeah.
Karl Prohaska.
Hello, Johnny.
Welcome to the program, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm looking at my face in the monitor there, and Jesus, I look like I got a cherry tomato on as a head.
Well, I'm looking at you, and it's looking like 10 years into the future. So that's that. How are you doing today, man? How you been?
I'm good. I woke up relatively hungover free this morning. I did a catering event last night and forgot to eat.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's always a nice surprise when you realize you've gone most of the way through a bottle of Jack Daniels and you're like, why am I so hammered?
Yeah.
But I'm good. It's a weird Pittsburgh weather for December. It was like 60 yesterday.
It was beautiful. I wore sandals.
Did you really?
I did. I did. Just because I was like, fuck these socks. So let's get it started. You're originally from here.
Yep.
And then when did you join the Air Force? Because I'm assuming that plays into your moving.
Yeah. I grew up in Lower Burrell, and went to college. I went to Slippery Rock for a year. Came home, and my parents wanted me to go to college. My dad was one of those old school, you are nothing unless you get a college degree. And when I went to Slippery Rock, all I did was party. And I was wasting my parents' money, so I joined the Air Force.
What are we looking at, mid-'80s here?
Early 80s.
Early 80s?
83. I joined the Air Force in 84. And I always tell people I basically left home and I never came back.
So when you joined, that was your decision?
Yeah.
And your parents, they not against it? Or?
They were not pleased.
Okay.
My dad especially. But I needed to grow up. And I wasn't doing that in college. My folks were really, I don't want to say strict, but I had a lot of rules. And I went to college and I didn't have any rules. I went nuts.
Yeah. Did you come from a religious background?
No, not particularly.
Just strict in general?
Just very strict.
Okay.
My friends, a lot of my friends grew up with folks who were like, oh, it's okay, just call us and let us know where you are. My dad was like, you're in the house at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
His great favorite phrase was, you may be earlier, but you will not be later.
My mom used to call me and ask if I was still alive. You're not arrested or dead yet? I heard sirens. No, I'm fine, Mom.
But I went to college and I went a little nuts, and I wanted something else to do, so I joined the Air Force. I spent 10 years in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and after that, got into working bars and restaurants, went to chef school, and basically I spent probably 34, 35 years away from the area.
Now, that's interesting because I had assumed just from like the timeline of things I know about you. So you're cooking. What was your role then in the Air Force? What did you do for?
I was a military cop.
Oh, okay.
I was a security policeman in the Air Force.
Okay, that's a good fit.
I went to college and thought I knew everything there was to know about drinking and swearing. Mm-hmm. And then I joined the military and realized I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I spent 10 years as a military policeman, and I didn't want to do that when I got out. It's being a military cop. You get to see all the crime, but it's rare. I saw suicides. I worked child abuse and stuff like that. But as a regular cop, that's every day.
My question for you, because I don't know much about military police, are you like policing the base, or is yes. That's where you're policing?
Yeah, the way I likened it, because I was in the Air Force. It is like being a small town cop.
Okay.
We have everything that our base had everything that a regular small town would have. And you do just basic law enforcement, speed limits and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
Theft, accident investigation. But the real violent stuff, you don't see an awful lot of. And I knew from the limited exposure I had to that, it's not something I wanted to have to deal with every day.
That's
so
fair.
that's what got me back into bartending and bar managing, and eventually bar managing turned into kitchen managing, and then I went to chef school and learned the profession.
Real quick before we move on to that, because that's very interesting too. I love seeing your Facebook posts and everything about it. Where were you based at when you were in the Air Force, and where did you travel to?
Let's see. I was in Montgomery, Alabama for 6 years.
Shout out to Andreas O'Rourke, last week's episode, from Alabama.
Andreas is from Alabama?
Yeah, he's from Alabama.
I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years.
Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
'Cause he's got that kind of beachy coastal vibe.
Yeah,
to
like
him.
like hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not Montgomery.
No. Well,
there's a comedian that used to call that Darwin's waiting room, and he's not really far off.
yeah, he talks about the struggles of growing up there.
Yeah.
And it was a real rough spot for him, and I think he moved to PA around age 18.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, he grew up there and out the mud and all that jazz.
Right. And I let's see, while I was in Montgomery, Alabama, I got to spend 6 months in Egypt, which was incredible.
Oh yeah, I bet.
It was unbelievable. You really, growing up as white bread suburban as I did, it was a real eye opener. You go to these quote unquote third world countries, and these bizarre owners who are don't have the classic college education and all that. But we went to this bazaar. The bazaar owner spoke 5 languages.
Oh, that's impressive.
And just shifted from one to the other. And it's just like, wow, it was a real eye opener to a much larger world. Because I went from Pennsylvania to Alabama, which was an eye opener in and of itself, but then spending time in Egypt. After Alabama, I went to Alaska for a year, which is also incredible. And
wow, now since you're a chef now, while you were doing these travels, would you have considered yourself a foodie?
No.
Okay, so
no,
okay.
I would never really went out. My parents were, I don't want to say foodies, but they liked a broad spectrum of foods. Mm-hmm. I wasn't one of those kids that grew up with, especially in this area, meatloaf on Wednesdays and steaks on, we did have steaks on Sundays because that was my dad. That was his contribution to the cooking. But it's like they liked seafood. They liked Asian food. But I wouldn't have considered myself a foodie. Mm-hmm. I got to try a lot of things in different parts of the world, which was interesting, and that was the beginning steps of it.
Okay.
And then Alaska for a year, which again was incredible. And then I was in upstate New York at Plattsburgh, which is just south of the Canadian border.
Okay.
For 3 years, the final 3 years. While I was there, I spent time in Spain. And then I spent time in France too. So it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. The Air Force made me. A lot of people will debate this, but it made me grow up.
That's fair.
And there's a lot of people who are like they did a shitty job, but it taught me. I needed, for that period of my life, I needed someone to tell me where to be someplace and don't do this and don't do that, because I probably would have spun out of control. After the Air Force, moved to Illinois, and that's where the real bartending, restaurant managing came in. And then my wife and I moved to D.C., which is where I went to culinary school.
So did you meet your wife while you were in the service?
Which one?
The one that's currently plotting your murder. I guess I was unaware that there was multiple. My apologies.
Yeah. Marriage and me are like golf. I like doing it. I'm terrible at it, though.
Carl, you philanderer.
Yes, wife number one, I met in the Air Force. Wife number two, I also met in the Air Force. And wife number three, I met in the Air Force. Wife number four is also wife number one.
All right.
Yeah, it came back around. And
full circle.
Yeah. But my wife, I was married to wife number three at the time, and we moved to D.C., and that's where I went to culinary school.
Okay. So when you started, you said bar managing moved on to kitchen managing.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I found myself, I would hang out in the kitchen more than being out in the front of the house. Mm-hmm. And the general manager at the time is like, I need someone to keep an eye on things back here. You like being back here. Why don't you just start managing the kitchen? I've always liked the back of the house. The joke that I tell people, and it's only partially not true, is that I like the back of the house because at least I can hate the same group of people every day. Okay. When you're in the front of the house, you have to learn how to hate new people every day.
High turnover rate?
Exactly. And not only that, the customers. When I'm in back, I can hate the servers, I can hate the cooks. That's the same group of people every day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So liquor and hate is really the basis of all my cooking.
I've never been a kitchen staff guy. It's just something I never wanted to get into.
Right.
But I see, I'll say the trope of just like the guys in the kitchen just being miserable and hating shit, but coming to work every goddamn day.
Yep. Yeah. It's very much like the military, actually. You go in, you do your job. Whether you're coming in or not is never a question. Mm-hmm. You're coming in. Yeah. There's a structure, from the chef to the sous chef to the lead cook to on down.
You know what? This is a good time to ask you that because I don't know what the hell that is. What is a sous chef?
A sous chef, the sous actually means under. So a sous chef is the boss when the boss isn't around.
Oh. I'll be completely honest with you. When I hear the word sous, I think of like a pig. Like, sous, like that. And I thought they were connected somehow. I didn't know. I thought it was a special chef that like worked on certain things.
No.
Wow.
It's just basically the number two.
The understudy.
In the kitchen. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, if you're in a big enough.
I'm sorry, Carl. You sous chefs are full of shit out there, confusing us normal people. Just say you're a chef. I had a guy that told me he was a sous chef in the lift the other day, and I just was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, feeling like an idiot because I didn't know what type of food he prepared. You guys need to get it together. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. If you're in a big enough organization, like the executive chef will have an executive sous chef, and then there will be sous chefs underneath him, and those sous chefs may run different departments. Like garde manger, they may run.
Slow down, buddy. You know what I'm going to ask.
Garde manger is the area of the kitchen where they do a lot of the cold prep, salads, the hors d'oeuvres, that sort of thing. It's highly specialized, highly repetitive work, and I can't stand it. I'm way too ADD for it.
Okay.
But you'll have, you may have a sous chef running the pastry department. You may have the sous chef running your prep department. So if your organization is big enough, you'll have an executive sous over all of those guys, and then he reports to the executive chef.
I think the guy I was talking to in the car, I took him to a Outback. So I don't think the structure was that
He
advanced.
wasn't a sous chef then. Yeah. He was an assistant kitchen manager with dreams of glory.
So once you're back there, you're managing the kitchen staff and all
right.
that. When did you? Well, what took you from Chicago to D.C.?
You mean? Oh, it was actually
Or excuse me, Illinois.
Southern Illinois.
I'm sorry, Illinois to
Yeah.
D.C.
It was right outside of St. Louis, actually.
Oh, okay.
That far down there. My wife number 3 got stationed in. She was still in.
Okay.
I was out. She got stationed in D.C. And then when that marriage was over, I moved to San Diego to be with wife number 1, who is now 4. It's a very convoluted story. People wonder why I drink.
Well, if you're a Steelers fan, this season explains it all.
Yeah. But then San Diego, I started working in a hotel in San Diego. Then I went from, apparently I'm only allowed to work in 4 cities in the country. I went from San Diego to Nashville, Nashville to Hilton Head, Hilton Head back to Nashville, Nashville back to San Diego, and then that brought us finally here.
Okay.
And
so your culinary, when you take, go to culinary school, how long does it take you? Because, when I first started comedy, I wouldn't call myself a comedian.
Right.
Until someone finally said, oh, that guy's a comic. Like another a peer.
Right.
How long after you take your culinary school, do you consider yourself a chef, or do you work up to that?
There are kids that go to culinary school that think they're a chef day one of culinary school.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about my life is kind of weird. I got out of culinary school and got hired to be a sous chef, which I was not qualified for. I worked at the University Club of Washington, D.C., and the general manager there told the chef, because of my military background, I already knew how to do schedules. I already knew a lot of general management 101 stuff after 10 years in the military. Mm-hmm. They hired me as a sous chef, and the downside of that was, as far as the culinary side of it, I really didn't know what I was doing. Not in a professional kitchen. Mm-hmm. Especially not in a kitchen where the cooks had been cooking as a group together for 15, 20 years.
Oh, and you're the new kid on the block, and they're molded in together.
Just out of culinary school.
So you're trying to learn how to do shit they can do with their eyes closed.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, was there hostility towards you because of this?
There wasn't an outward hostility. They took advantage of my naivete, and I didn't have any respect because I didn't have the culinary chops. Mm-hmm. I could tell them what to do, fully knowing that I probably didn't know how to do it myself.
Oh, okay.
And in that realm, it was a terrible, terrible situation. Mm-hmm. So then I compounded that. I doubled down and took the executive chef job.
Oh, there you go.
At another bar. And it's funny when you finally get to sit in the big chair, as they say. I threw everything on the menu that I ever learned about cooking. The menu was a mess. Yeah. Oh, my God. You bring in product for one dish, and there was so many of those one. You have to have cross-utilization, and I didn't learn that. So finally, I took a step back and became a sous chef for a very good company called McCormick and Schmick.
Okay.
They're part of, I think, Darden now, and they've lost a lot of who they were.
They're the real high-end place, though, right?
Yeah. But when I joined that company, they were really chef-driven.
Mm-hmm. MC Auto Detailing is a home-based detailing company located in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. At MC Auto, we take care of all of your detailing needs, from a basic hand wash to a complete makeover of your vehicle. Busy schedule? MC Auto is also mobile. You can get your vehicle detailed in the comfort of your own home. With a 5-star rating on Google, we treat your vehicle as if it was our own. For a free quote and more information, contact MC Auto on Facebook and Instagram at MC Auto Detailing LLC or call 724-462-4863. MC Auto Detailing. Who doesn't like a clean car?
And
what does that mean specifically? Like they were allowing the chefs to determine more of what was served?
Yep,
okay.
Exactly that. We had a what they called a core menu, and that was because it was across the country. There was like 25 items that we had to have on the menu, just so that there was continuity from one restaurant to the other.
These like entrees, like
it could be anything. It could be like their signature soup.
Okay.
That way, if you're in Oregon and you love this soup, you go to D.C., you can get that same soup.
Okay.
But we also had the chefs had so much creative freedom. But once they started getting bigger and bigger, that circle closed more and more.
Now, with working there and the creative freedom that you guys had, how did that affect your ability to grow? Did you think it benefited to you?
It did, because I had a great mentor, a guy named Tom Kranz, who allowed me to take my culinary flights of fancy, but he also knew when to go, no, it's too expensive. We can't do that. Rework the dish to where it helped me rein in and really dial down and circle down into what is a good and profitable dish while still being creative.
Okay.
And I really he'll say if he was sitting here, he'll say that he never really taught me anything. I really probably owe my culinary career to him, just because he knew exactly how to handle me. I never felt stifled. He always listened to my opinion. I'm one of those kind of people that I don't care if you change what you're doing. I need to voice my opinion about it. And in the military and in the culinary world, it kind of makes you a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But it's, come the end of the day, if he said we're doing it this way, then, he's going back to the military reference, he's the commander. We're doing it this way. And I will make sure that everybody else does it this way. So that was really kind of cool. And then from there, San Diego, I got into hotels, and I worked hotels for years.
And you were out in San Diego for a long time.
The first time for about a year. Then it was Nashville. Over about a 5 or 6 year period, it was Nashville, Hilton Head, Nashville. About 2 years each place, and then back to San Diego for, 12, 13 years.
And where did you start comedy?
Well, another interesting story. When I was in the military,
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, when I was in the military, it was the early '80s. And how old are you?
34.
34. Okay. You don't remember.
No,
but
I do not remember the
early 80s. That was known as the first comedy boom. And everywhere you look, there was a new comedy club opening up. And if you talk to the greats in the game, like when they're talking about, if you watch that special about the Comedy Store or any of that, at the time there weren't enough comedians to fill all the clubs. There were clubs opening so fast, it expanded too fast.
That would be almost a nice problem to have.
It would be. It would be now. But then you saw a lot of really terrible comedy.
How is that different from today?
Well, I guess it all comes back around.
We're full circle. Have you been to Pittsburgh?
But I started doing, I did an open mic at a place it was a Punchline, not like the series of clubs
Not
that
the
are
corporate
open now.
chain?
Not the corporate
Okay.
chain. And I won the open mic like 3 times in a row.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and the owner said, "Why don't you come back and you host the open mic in next month?" Well, also being in the early '80s, it turned out the owner liked buying cocaine and not paying his taxes
Oh, you don't say.
more than he liked owning a comedy club.
Do you know what prevents that from being my life?
What's
Is
that?
a lack of money. Or else I would just be buying cocaine and not paying taxes everywhere I fucking went.
I'm not an addict. I'm underfunded.
I don't have a cocaine problem simply because I'm extremely poor.
But I pulled up at the comedy club on my big night, and there was police tape across the door.
Oh no!
So I stopped doing comedy because life gets in the way. I had kids and I was working and all that, and then again, everything about my life is weird. I got into Satan's sub-basement of doing bringer shows.
Oh boy, bringer shows.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Bringer shows.
The nuclear waste swamp of comedy.
Bringer shows are the quicksand traps for every new comedian there is. We've all dealt with it. It's such bullshit.
Oh my God, it was awful. And you really find out who your true friends are if they show up at a bringer show twice.
Yeah.
One time you can sucker them into it. The second time it's like you
We ain't
start
coming
looking
back
at them
again.
and going, "I'm starting to question this friendship. I'm not certain. There's something wrong with you."
People
But
are like, you could do. You bring 87 people, we'll give you 15 minutes.
Oh,
What?
they were terrible. Now the good part about that is that I treated them like actual shows. I tried to do new material. I wrote, and it's like with open mics. A lot of people use open mics so they can get comfortable being on stage. And bringer shows, you can tell there are certain people who are just so not comfortable. During my time in hotels, I was like a corporate trainer. So I was already comfortable speaking in front of audiences. I was already comfortable having everybody's eyes on me. So it wasn't, my problem was lack of material, not stage comfort.
Okay.
But once I started writing, kind of finding my voice, I outgrew bringer shows. And finally, it's funny, the comedians, the San Diego comedians who used to really bag on bringer shows would headline the bringer show that I was on because they were asked to.
Yeah.
But I started making contacts and getting booked on other people's shows. The guy who really gave me the confidence to do it is actually a Pittsburgh comedian, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
Zach Miller.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar with Zach Miller.
Zach's been out in California for a long time now, and he is a super host. He's a comedy producer, and I met him at a place called the Comedy Palace and tried playing the Pittsburgh card. But Zach was a good dude, and he told me straight up. He goes, "You're not ready to do my shows." He goes, "Get more experience and come back."
You know what? I've heard that from people too before, and I appreciate when they say something in that manner. And even at the time, we don't always feel like, oh, he's doing the right thing and telling me the truth. We think, fuck this person. But in retrospect, if someone tells you you're not ready, they usually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's more for your benefit than not.
And Zach, I started doing better, and Zach heard from other comedians that I was doing better, and he gave me a guest spot on one of his shows. And that went really well. And he's been a trusted friend and mentor ever since. Because, in this game, and you know it as well as I do, there's a lot of crabs in a bucket syndrome that you have to step on somebody to get where you were. Zach wasn't that way. Zach was giving me honest feedback and basically throwing the gauntlet down. He's like, you want to be on my show? Get better at this. And once the sting went away of him, not wanting me on his show.
Because it does sting.
Yeah,
we're artists.
It does.
We're delicate.
It does. Oh, yeah, we are delicate.
Like me and you, okay? We look like two fucking manly-ass men.
Right.
But when it comes to comedy, I know me personally, I'm delicate as shit.
Oh.
Especially, like, earlier on. Mm-hmm. So, like, yeah, that shit stings so bad.
Yep. And then I continued to do it out there. And then just when I was kind of part of the scene, we moved here. Now,
what brought you here? Because this is legitimately the other side of the country.
and a comedy desert, kind of.
A comedy desert. It's like a comedy pit hole. There's a couple guys. Yeah, there's a couple guys here or gals that are doing good things, but for the most part, this is not a city for comedy anymore. It's fucking fractured. I will say, Karl, the weather has to be much better in San Diego than this shithole.
It was for sure, but perfectly honest with you, Johnny, San Diego was breaking me financially.
Okay.
It is such an expensive city to live in. Our apartment was an 800 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment, and they were taking our rent to almost $2,500 a month.
And what year was this?
This is 3 years ago.
Oh, God.
And it wasn't like it was Ocean View or it was in a part of San Diego called Mission Valley, which is just strip malls and strip malls and apartments.
For $2,500 a month, you could live like a goddamn king here.
Yeah. And my parents had passed, both of them. Left me in a position financially that we could make the move without having a job here. And our daughter had graduated college, wasn't going to live in San Diego with us. She was moving to Boston. So my wife finally pulled the trigger. I've been trying to get back for years. And we knew where we wanted to come, and it was here.
Okay.
I get this. Yeah. As shitty as Pittsburgh can be, I love this city, and I get. Mm-hmm. I'm part of the fabric here.
For as much shit as I talk on the city, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's because I was born here.
Right.
And I know it, but it does make sense for all the things I talk shit on. These are my people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like, comedy-wise, it was going back to square one. Mm-hmm. I live in Natrona Heights, which is way the hell up 28. I'm 56. Yeah. I am not dragging my ass all over downtown Pittsburgh to go to open mics.
Yeah. No, I can understand that.
It's that's open mics is a young man's game.
It's brutal.
I was fortunate to meet you on an actual show.
What was it? The Blind Pig, right?
The Blind Pig.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is going to label me a comedy heretic.
Oh, boy. I'm excited to hear it now.
I don't buy into open mics.
As far as?
I don't think anybody gets good at open mics. It is the time-honored tradition. It's if somebody posts, and you see it on Pittsburgh Comedy, hey, I want to try stand-up comedy. The first comment will be, go to open mics. Go to all the open mics. Go to every open mic. Mm-hmm. If there's an open mic being held in a phone booth and it's attended by one meth addict, you need to be in that room. Open mics are terrific because of contacts. Mm-hmm. I really, truly believe you get good by doing comedy in front of an audience, not a bunch of similarly bored open micers who are sitting back there scribbling in their notebooks while you're trying to break out your new joke.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I realize that, there's going to be probably comedians with torches and pitchforks outside the door of the podcast studio here.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say, I'm not going to come out and say you're completely wrong, because I get what you're saying.
Right.
I personally, especially when I first started, needed open mics just to get more comfortable being on a stage,
right,
being in front of people. And open mics help me understand the art of bombing. Because once you can understand that and get comfortable in that silence, when a joke doesn't hit at a regular show, I don't give a fuck about this.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree, because I got significantly better once I started getting on shows. But I feel like there was a level of improvement I had to make at the mics before they would give me the opportunity at shows.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's like an incremental growth, and then it compounds on bigger shows, and how it snowballs.
And I don't want to say hatred, my distaste.
I love the word hatred.
My distaste for open mics, in a lot of cases, makes you really sound like an arrogant prick, and and I'm not. I am not going to sit here and say I'm the next Bill Burr and all that. I'm struggling to get on shows anyway.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll drive across the state for 10 minutes probably, and not even knowing if I'm getting paid or not. But it's just the thing that it really limited me to is that I didn't make a lot of contacts. Mm-hmm. Unless I'm actually on a card with somebody, nobody knows who the hell I am. Fortunately, the guys I do know in Pittsburgh are people who are getting booked an awful lot, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and that's helped. I lived out one of my bucket list dreams for being on Aaron Kleiber's show at the Improv. I'd never played at Improv, mm-hmm. And that was because we were on a card together. With Zach Miller came home, did a show at the Club Cafe, and Aaron was on that, and I got booked for the Improv show. Well, I got booked, and then the pandemic happened, so I actually did the show a year later.
Yeah.
But I met you, which is I'm on a podcast. I've worked with Marcus.
I seen that you guys had a show recently.
Yeah, Marcus and I have worked. I've worked with Marcus more than anybody, because basically you call Marcus and he's like, okay.
Marcus comes up on this show so damn much. We run the commercial for MC Auto Detail every episode. He is one of my closest friends in comedy.
Right.
Absolutely love that guy.
He's just a great guy.
And I can't sell him enough. Great comedian, funny dude, businessman, hell of a businessman, phenomenal fucking husband and father.
Oh.
Cannot say enough nice things about Marcus, even though he likes to talk shit on my music choices, and his old ass looks like Michael Irving. So fuck you, Marcus, but we love you.
But, and now I'm starting to actually, because of some of those connections, I'm actually getting to know some of the, you hate to use the term, like the next rung down producers.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I met Wolfie at the...
Wolfie, great guy. He was just on here.
I met him at a show at the Blind Pig, and we're going to do something together.
Wolfie is one of those guys that he's an older guy, but when you talk to him, I guess the best word I could describe is ornery. He seems like just like there's a fucking Dennis the Menace in there trying to get out.
You expect him to yell for people to get off your lawn.
Yeah. But he gives off a real ornery energy. I love it. It's and you know what? You don't give off the same energy, but you don't give off that crusty old man energy that some people do. And I'm saying this as a compliment.
Despite being a crusty old man.
That didn't come out right. It didn't come out right. But what I'm saying is speaking to you in the interactions I've had with you, you have this youthful, fun energy about you that's not, what people perceive or see in a lot of older comics.
Right.
Because I see comics in their 50s and 60s that aren't famous and are like kind of crotchety and bitter. And it's like, I love it when I can talk to someone because essentially if you're a comic, you're my peer.
Right.
That's not quite that jaded yet.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I met I'm not going to say his name, but I met a relatively famous comic who I'd heard on the Bob and Tom show, and I was booked on a show with him, and it was really cool for me that I was meeting a comic of his nature. Mm-hmm. What a prick. Oh, my God. I just wanted to come out and just basically said hello and told him that I was a fan, and he was like, please, I'm getting prepared for the show.
Salutation Shades, and welcome back to your one-stop shop for all things strange and unusual, Talking with Shadows, the conversation everyone has, but no one wants to admit to. Here with your host, Vic Whaley.
And Marcus D. Now come along with us as we explore the most obscure things our universe has to offer. We specialize in helping people make sense of the most bizarre phenomenon you'll ever come across. You'll get all the great topics such as UFOs, cryptids, and psychic phenomenon, but also some stories that are so spectacular they scare people to believe that they're true. Now take a seat and welcome to the One Candle Society. But always remember, keep believing.
'Cause we'll keep listening.
Dude, you've been doing this same set for 20 years. I think you have it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're poring over note cards on new material.
Yeah. The thing is, when I think of comics, I think like fun.
Right.
Our job is to make people laugh. And when I meet a comic that's similar to that, it just throws me off. Like, do you not know what we're trying to do here? Like, this is so much fun. Like, people want to do this.
Right.
I don't know. And I'll say this again, too. There's people that get a bad rap in the scene. I'll bring up Matt Light specifically. People think the kid's an asshole and this and that. When I've worked with him professionally, fucking consummate professional, and I cannot say that enough about him.
It's tough sometimes for me to wrap my head around the Matt that I know and have worked with,
and the way
versus the social media
yeah.
Matt.
It's wild. People think like he's just a piece of garbage and blah blah blah. He's a great fucking guy and a fucking professional.
He's got that, and he's a big fan. He's got that wrestling mentality.
Yep.
Who Matt is not who Matt portrays.
There's kayfabe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's and I've known Matt for probably 3-4 years now, and I can't say enough good things about him. He's just a great guy.
I met Matt the first time at Beer Hive.
Oh yeah.
When he would host that.
The host of Mike.
But yeah, like that's
actually where we met.
We met
at the Beer Hive out front.
I could have swore we met at Blind Pig, and then I saw you at the Beer Hive and was like, "Oh, Carl, nice to see you again."
Was it the? Yeah, it might have been that.
Well, either way, it was very similar.
You were hanging with Andres as you usually do. Your heterosexual life partner. But
Andreas calls me vain, and it's a reference directly to my penis.
But it's the comedy. I think it's unconscionable for a city of this size to essentially have 2 comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's a stretch when you say that too.
Yeah, Hambones, may it rest in peace.
Yeah.
Was really, and correct me if I'm wrong, was really known more for its mics than its shows.
I would agree with that. However, the festival garnered a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
And that spread quite a bit.
Right.
The shows, I was such a young comic that, I can't say the shows were good. I know they were bringing out-of-towners in.
Right.
But I do know that like the mics was the biggest thing there.
Right.
And we lost a lot with that. Like even if the shows weren't the best, we lost so much with that venue.
Yeah.
And then, the Improv, they're more focused on business, which I get.
Right.
But they're it's a more of a corporate thing than it is a comedy, scene, grow, develop. And Arcade, shout out to Arcade, nothing against them, but they're a hybrid show venue.
It's a mixed bag.
It does improv, does stage shows, all types of stuff. We don't have a club in the city or in the area even that I feel like cultivates local talent and tries to get them improved to a level where it's not here. We're going to do a shitty show at a bar this week.
Right.
To actually bring you the professional environment and help you up to the tools.
Yeah, San Diego was interesting in that right at La Jolla, you have the Comedy Store. There's the American Comedy Club downtown. And those two were similar beasts in that their headliners were always true headliners. Like L.A. headliners, big names, would either be at the store or the American Comedy Club. But I worked at a comedy club called Madhouse Comedy Club, and it was the second, like, AAA ball.
Okay.
Like, the headliners at the Madhouse were
Washington Wildcats.
Yeah, they were people who were going to go on to much bigger things, but they were clearly better than everybody else on the card. And there was the Comedy Palace that also did shows, and it's the fact. And there's another one that's recently opened. I can't remember the name because I don't live there anymore. But there was 5 comedy clubs. And I did, again, the weirdness that is my life, I did most of my comedy upbringing in clubs.
Okay.
Not in shitty bar shows, not in, every place I went had a stage, and it had sound, and it had lights. And
you know what? I'm going to say this. Must be nice.
It again, it was weird. It's not everybody's common experience. And
my comedy career has gone through the fucking trenches. I've performed with no microphone, no sound. Yeah.
Have you really?
Oh, many times I go a cappella. But here's the thing. Here's the wild thing that it's happened to me so many times before. When I'm on a show now where the sound is out, I see other comedians struggling, and they're like holding their hand and not projecting. I get up there and I'm just like,
right.
But yeah, I've gone through shit, I mean, and it makes you stronger, but
sure,
it's one of those things at the time, you don't want to fucking do it.
Right.
Yeah.
The downside of I didn't know how to handle no crowd. Bar shows prepare you for either no crowd or if the crowd is there. Sometimes I liken bar shows to you're inflicting comedy on an unsuspecting nation. Because
you're harassing them with jokes.
Because a lot of times it's not like they even advertise it.
Nope.
So there are people coming in there to watch the ball game. They're in there to shoot pool. All of a sudden, some asshole standing in the corner.
Screaming about his dick.
Yeah. So, but one thing working at comedy clubs, like if you work a random Tuesday night show at a comedy club and the weather's not good and you don't know how to handle having nobody in the audience. I've performed in front of 6 people before. It oh God, it sucks.
I performed in front of an audience of 2. It was miserable.
Especially when you're in a club and everything is geared. Those poor 6 people were sitting in this empty room. And I was completely unprepared for it.
Carl, when you were living in San Diego, did you ever go up to L.A.?
No.
No? Okay.
No, because I don't ever, on all the slash lines, comedian is never first for me. I know a lot of people who, most people who are trying to be serious about it is I'm a comedian with a day job. I'm a chef who does comedy.
Okay.
That has always been, and so I've never really had, while I was doing comedy, I've never really had a job. I've had a career.
Okay.
I've had, I'm doing my life's work.
Most of us are doing gigs and shit just to try and make this.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's just, I'm not your typical guy. And the art is kind of the same thing. I'm not.
Yeah, tell me about your painting. I didn't.
I started painting way back years ago when I was still in the Air Force. I started painting, and I started with oil paints. But again, alluding to my terrible ADD, oils take too long to dry. And I stopped doing it for a while because I would go in and I can just try to fix this. Well, then I had to fix what I just tried to fix. And it's like when you're trimming your mustache or your beard and it keeps incrementally getting up and sooner or later you're clean shaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. And then YouTube, I started watching like the spray paint videos. The guys doing like space painting.
Those are really cool.
So I taught myself how to do that. And from that, I started doing spray paint landscapes. And it was fine when I lived in San Diego, but my wife won't let me spray paint in the house.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can understand.
And yeah, because that smell doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So I got into acrylics because I can do that inside. And I've been painting, especially since I stopped being a chef full time, I've been painting an awful lot lately. And I love it. It's just I have to have a creative outlet.
Do you have a specialty?
I would probably say landscapes, although I've probably sold as many abstracts as I have landscapes. And it's comedy and art are very, very similar.
Yes.
In that my daughter likes to tell me, she goes, "You're really good at stuff that's incredibly difficult to get paid for."
Yeah.
And I it's funny, I still consider my second slash mark comedian, but I've made more selling art than I ever have as a comedian.
I think partially because I think being a comedian is one of the most underappreciated and disrespected art forms there is. Because
I would agree.
Everybody thinks, oh, I'm funny. I can be fucking funny. I make people laugh at the office. But people look at a portrait or a painting and they know, I could never do that.
Right.
I'm no good at that.
Right.
But they think, I could tell jokes, so what the fuck do they do? You know?
Yeah, it's people, it's almost like, I heard a debate the other day over who has done more, who was the more, what did they say? Who changed the landscape of the NBA more, Michael Jordan or Steph Curry?
Okay.
Now, the argument was Steph Curry because he's a normal-looking dude. He's 6 foot tall, skinny, but people have the perception that if I go to the gym and I shoot 1,000 shots a day, I can be the next Steph Curry.
Okay.
Like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, 6'6" and 6'8". LeBron James is built like a tight end.
Yeah.
Those guys they're incredible, and they are probably on the very short list of greatest of all time.
I'll give you that.
If not Jordan being number one, I would say. But they had certain attributes that a regular Joe can't.
Can I push back on this a little bit?
Sure.
I'll give you that. Curry looks normal in comparison. However, though, his father was a professional NBA player.
Sure.
His brother is a professional NBA player. He's got a high level. It's not like just a normal guy going out there. And I'm not saying you're wrong.
Right.
Because I feel like it's generational.
Sure.
One of those things. I will say I think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Mm-hmm. However, I feel like I don't think he changed like the perception, because in his day there were superstars everywhere.
Sure.
They were everywhere, and for him to rise head and shoulders above the rest,
Right.
it was what I think is impressive.
Yeah.
Obviously, LeBron James, there's a lot of talk there. Number 3, 4, 5. He's top 10 of all time, I would
Sure.
think. I would say, you can argue that, and people say flopped, or he's 3-13 or whatever. How many championships do you have?
Right.
Talking shit on LeBron James.
I love people. The same thing with like people who are one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many hits do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be one hit, but they sold 1 million of them.
There was a comic on Facebook that, and I'm not mad at him for this, and I won't bring his name up, but it was a while ago, and he talked about how easy it is what Jeff Dunham and Gabriel Iglesias do, and how easy it is for them to do it because it's such an easy thing, and he's trying to do something that's so much harder.
Oh my
and
God.
I couldn't comment or anything because I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
I love the people who are like, the audience did get me. I'm too edgy.
Oh,
No, you're an idiot. They got you. They know exactly who you are.
I go off on the edgelords all the time. Karl, one more thing, I guess, before we get out of here. I usually ask the guest for a piece of advice to the listeners. It doesn't have to be about comedy or art or chefistry is the word I'll create right now. But just a piece of advice that you think would benefit the listeners.
I have lived a lot of my life following my heart and not my head. I've moved for following my heart. I would say that don't allow your logical mind to block something that your heart really wants. I love doing comedy. I love cooking. I love to paint. Especially now that I've kind of backed off from being a chef. Comedy and painting aren't really paying the bills. But it's something that I know that I need to do. And if you have something, especially if it's something that doesn't hurt anybody, even if your friends don't understand it, or you're not going to be rich and famous, or if it's something that makes your heart happy, pursue it. Just do it. And again, if the thing that makes your heart happy is murdering people, well, seek help. But if it's something that makes you happy, then pursue it.
That's beautiful advice. And real quick, before we get out of here, promo yourself. Where can people find you on social media?
I am on Instagram as at Sunbear Creative. That's my catch-all for all the art, food, comedy, and I also have a Facebook page on. I don't do anything on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Neither do I.
I don't think that I have anything that's quippy enough on a day-to-day basis that I post there.
I got nothing for Twitter.
Yeah, somebody asked me if I was ever on TikTok. I was like, I'm 56 years old. TikTok is the sound that the 60 Minutes thing makes.
I feel like I should be on there. I just need to get motivated. But these kids, man, they'll tear you apart, and I don't just got time for it.
And again, like I said, I'm 56. You said I don't seem ornery, but once you get to a certain age, and you're rapidly approaching that, Jay Smith.
Yeah, I never stop being ornery.
Well, that's true. That's true. But
I'm so full of shit, Karl.
The general horse shit that goes on at a lot of that stuff, you just don't have tolerance or time for it anymore.
Yeah.
I could, if I'm sitting there looking at a bunch of cliques, sitting there just gossiping like old fishwives, I'm thinking I could be in my pajamas having a cocktail at home.
I was telling a former guest, I don't remember who, but I was telling him, I don't even look at my analytics. Because it doesn't matter. Because I'm going to still come and do this show because I love it. I don't know who's listening. I don't know how many people are listening.
You're following your heart.
I'm following my heart. So that was great advice. Carl, thank you so much for coming
absolutely,
in,
Johnny.
Absolute pleasure. Learned a lot about you. Did not love all of it, man. Guys, make sure you check him out. Hilarious dude. Like, and I mean that. Like, first time I saw you on stage, I thought, okay, this guy's funny. So check him out. Eat something, maybe. I don't know. Buy some art. Definitely going to buy some art in the future. I like to buy art off my guests. So
that's awesome.
In the next couple months, I'll be reaching out to you, and we'll have something to put in the home studio.
Awesome. You better start checking your analytics because you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's hey,
and don't think just because your producer is professional wrestler size, you're going to get a discount for that.
He's going to be the champ soon. You guys just watch. Yeah, I don't know. I guess to my listeners, thanks, Mom and my brother. I don't know, but until next time, guys, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us. Peace and love.